We're back. Bill Clinton is very close in the electoral vote, but he's still not there. 238 electoral votes. John Chancellor, you've been doing a little calculation over there.
Well, there are 254 electoral votes that are still undecided, and Bush needs 224 of them to go to 270, the magic number. That's 90% of all electoral votes still out there the president would have to get in order to win, and that is the measure of his situation right now.
And if that would happen, that would be a historic night in an altogether different sense than what we've been talking about.
Isn't that the truth? Tom, we don't have any further projections on the Senate side just yet, although we suspect it's 9:48 here in the East right now. We suspect that once we turn the clock past 10 o'clock, we will be able to project winners on the Senate side in Nevada and Iowa. Let's give you a look at how the Senate breaks down right now. We had told you earlier on that the margin was 57-43 Democrats when the night started. At this point, the Democrats hold an advantage of 20. It's 52-32 with 16 yet to be determined. 5 of those to be defended by Democrats, 11 by Republicans. Senator Warren Rudman of New Hampshire, outgoing Senator Warren Rudman of New Hampshire, is standing by with us. WBZ in Boston. Senator, welcome back. The number that we had looked at a little bit earlier was 60 for the Democrats. Twofold question. Number one, is it reachable? Number two, if they get it, how much difference will it make?
Well, of course it's reachable. I just cannot, guess where it's going to come out, but it's certainly within the realm of possibility. So that's up for you experts to project. Let me simply say, if they reach 60, then we truly will have a total end to any deadlock or gridlock in government, because at that point, there is no chance whatsoever for Republicans in the Senate to block any legislation they feel is not in the national interest. And of course, under the House rules, the House Democrats will control it totally. So essentially, if the Democrats can get their act together and decide what they think is best for the country, that's what the country will get. And the Republicans will truly, for the first time in many years, be a minority party. I hope that doesn't happen, but it well might tonight.
It seems the country has well decided that it had enough of divided government and it was easier to change the manager than it was the team. Do you really expect we're going to see a break in the gridlock that had been in Washington, been the order of the day for the past 12 years?
I think you will on a number of issues, but I have serious reservations where you will have any break in the gridlock over the serious issue of the deficit. I mean, after all, the kinds of votes that have to be cast are difficult ones, and whether or not people in Congress today, be they new or old, are willing to cast those votes, I'm just not sure. Earlier, you had Senator Bill Cohen on, and he was talking about a tough vote earlier this year in which only 28 votes were cast in the Senate. Now, the question is, will this new Congress be willing to cast votes? The more significant question is, will President-elect Clinton, if that's what happens, be willing to say to the Congress, we must get the deficit under control, if not in the short run, in the medium term? If he doesn't, then it seems to me we'll be back in gridlock over economic issues. I have no doubt that the social agenda the Democrats wish to pass will probably become law. The serious question is whether the economic agenda that is needed for the country will also become law. Only time will tell.
And are you of the school that says if he is going to give that harsh medicine to the American public, it's going to happen in the first 100 days or not happen at all?
I would say no, and let me simply tell you why. I think it should happen in the first 100 days. After all, Ross Perot may have been the wrong messenger, but he had a rather interesting and I think correct message. If President-elect Clinton, if that's where we're headed tonight, if he cannot get it done in the first 100 days and faces a midterm economic crisis, which the global financial markets could set upon him, he might be forced to deal that medicine out in a third or a fourth year of his term. So this is going to be a fascinating 4 years.
All right. Senator Rudman, thank you.
Thank you.
John Chancellor.
Well, 60 Democrats in the Senate sounds nice, but you can't get 60 Democrats to agree on anything. If you'd had 60 Democrats on the Titanic, they wouldn't have agreed on whether it would get off or not. Thank you.
That's okay. Katie?
Well, Brian, as we said before, abortion really hasn't dominated the political landscape this year as it has in years past, but abortion rights advocates seem to be the clear winners tonight. We've already seen a strong pro-choice measure that passed in Maryland this evening. Now, voters have rejected an initiative in Arizona that would have prohibited abortion except in life-threatening cases. The measure was opposed by 2/3 of the voters. It would have also prohibited the use of public funds for an abortion. Tom?
All right, it's not quite enough to get him to where he wants to get to tonight, but it's an important state. Louisiana goes into the Bill Clinton column. 9 electoral votes, home of June, derided during the course of this campaign. At one point, the president said it's just a tiny state between Texas and Oklahoma. And it turns out that it's a state alongside Texas and Oklahoma, not between them. And those are folks tonight in the Arkansas capital of Little Rock, which was very big now on the American political map. Bill Clinton is just moments away from an electoral victory. And that's a small town where the governor, who has been in office for 5 terms, goes for a jog in the morning and knows the folks along the street. And as he said very effectively during the course of one of the debates, you know, when somebody gets laid off in Arkansas, I'm likely to know their name or to know the town where the factory has been shut down. Polls that are closing now at this hour, 10 o'clock, as we move across the West. Idaho, Iowa, Montana, Nevada, and Utah, even though we continue to make projections and the electoral vote continues to count up, and that you get the electoral vote in your state by adding up the senators and the representatives, we do want to remind you again that the polls are open, especially in the Pacific time zone in many of the mountain states, and you should exercise your right to vote. Bill Clinton now is the winner in another state that has been solidly Democratic in recent years, and that's the state of Iowa. Iowa has dropped in unemployment in recent years, but Bill Clinton gets the 7 electoral votes from the state of Iowa. George Bush now picks up a couple of states out west that he had counted on to be safe states. They turned out to be that indeed. 5 electoral votes from Utah, and also next door from the state of Idaho. 4 electoral votes there for George Bush. So we'll color in those states for you now. Let's go to, we've got Iowa in there. Let's put in Utah and Idaho. Blue for George Bush. Not as many as he would like. He's going to be surrounded before this night is over by a lot more red states than blue states, although we still have big ones to call in Texas, as you can see, and down south. So the electoral total now, 254 for Bill Clinton, 55 for George Bush. So far, none for Ross Perot. Here's the national count of the vote. We're approaching 30% now. 4-point lead for Bill Clinton. Ross Perot is holding strong in the 16-17 range. It may even percolate up a little higher than that. And if it does, he's gotten his money's worth. He danced with his daughters yesterday, had a big rally around the country, spent his money, had a good time, and certainly became a fixture in American folklore, if not in the presidential race.
One of the things that we've learned earlier, were told earlier this year by many of the Republican operatives and some independent observers, was that because Clinton did not serve in uniform during the Vietnam War, that if that was used properly against him, that would turn all the Southern males, who were a very patriotic bunch, these experts said, against him. And so people began to pay a good bit of attention to that. I've been looking at the rough figures that we have in Georgia, which is a state where patriotism among young males is not unknown. Clinton and Bush were running about even as far as males are concerned. In Maryland, Clinton was slightly ahead. In Kentucky and Virginia, it was fairly close. And even in states that went for the president, South Carolina and Indiana, there was no big difference in the male vote. So my guess is that because Clinton didn't wear the uniform, it is not hurting him in the figures we have tonight.
John, along the same lines, one interesting note from the Gulf War. Remember when some senators voted against it, and it was thought it would come back to haunt them? Well, the numbers tonight are showing that 9 incumbents who voted against the Gulf War all won, as did 1 congressman who voted against the Gulf War and won an open seat, Byron Dorgan, for the Senate. So that's 10 of 10.
When we were down at the convention in Houston, the Republican convention, we took a poll, Tom, you remember? 57% of the Republican delegates said that they would not apply the word victory to the end of the war in the Gulf. It's just sort of gone off the national radar screen.
Saddam Hussein is still alive. There's still many questions about our dealings with Saddam Hussein and with Iraq before the war began. And bigger picture, it seems to me, that as we change the political landscape of this country tonight, we'll change a lot of assumptions. World War II versus Vietnam, having served in uniform versus not having served in uniform.
Tom, let me jump in here, if I could, with a couple of more Senate projections, because we have 2 more to add to our list, both incumbents in Iowa. Charles Grassley, Republican, going back for a 3rd term, managed to turn back the challenge of Gene Lloyd Jones, who was inspired, another of those inspired by the Clarence Thomas hearings, challenged the incumbent in Iowa, but came up a loser, as did Demar Dahl, losing to Harry Reid in Nevada. Reid, freshman senator in '86, wins fairly easily. Dahl was nicknamed the Marlboro Man in that state, but evidently voters found his campaign wasn't smoking quite enough, and so Harry Reid goes back to Washington. Let us tell you about some other Senate races that bear watching as this evening moves along. In Pennsylvania, this one is very close, as you can see, splitting right down the middle between Lynn Yeagle and Arlen Specter. We expect this one to go on into the night before we can declare a winner. In Missouri, surprisingly, Kit Bond in trouble, getting a strong challenge from St. Louis Councilwoman Jerry Rothman-Surratt. Senator Bond having some problem there with her. And in New Hampshire, we can tell you that Judd Gregg, the governor, is having considerable problems with retired professor, a corporate executive, John Rao. That one right now is breaking 50-48 for Rao with 22% of the vote in. That's another one in which the draft status had considerable problems because Gregg avoided the draft. He got out with acne, bad knees, and sleepwalking, was not helped by the fact that his father was governor.
Well, I think that what happened is that across party lines this time they were able to point at Dan Quayle and Dick Cheney, who served so effectively as the Secretary of Defense as student deferments during Vietnam. So it neutralized that issue, I think, to some degree.
Let's go to Washington right now, where Senator George Mitchell, the majority leader, is standing by in the Capitol. Senator, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Brian.
What's your take on the way things are breaking tonight?
It's going great.
That's
a definition of understatement.
Thank you very much. Don't be so expansive. Does the prospect, Senator, does the prospect of one government, legislative and executive branch, frighten you in any way? Because now suddenly the Democratic Party is going to have to come up with some answers.
We welcome the challenge and the responsibility. I think that...
It's just that close for Bill Clinton now, 10 minutes past 10 o'clock here in the East, about 11 minutes past 10 o'clock. He's very close in the electoral vote. We want to show that to you now. 254 electoral votes for Bill Clinton. He requires, as you can see, only 270. George Bush is at 55. Ross Perot has yet to win one. Bill Clinton can win those electoral votes from these states where the polls are closed, but we've not yet called them. You can see that North and South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, North Carolina still out. Ohio, Wisconsin are still out. We'll share with you now some of the raw vote in some of those states as we take a look at, for example, in Ohio, which is one of the battleground industrial states. It's very, very close there. It's about 17,000 votes separating them now, just 1 percentage point. Ross Perot continuing to run very strong. We don't know where his voting is coming from in Ohio. In Florida, again, Ross Perot running about 20% of the vote. Effectively a dead heat between the president and Bill Clinton out of more than 1 billion votes cast. Look at that, a difference of only 16 votes. That's really quite extraordinary with more than 1/3 of the vote counted so far. Right at 1/3 of the vote counted in Texas, and just 2 percentage points separating them there, and about 51,000 votes altogether. Ross Perot, 20% of the vote in Texas, probably took away a number of votes from President Bush in that state. The Bush people now beginning to believe that they made a mistake by attacking early Ross Perot, saying that he was a dictator, he didn't care about the Constitution, that he was a little bit wacky and paranoid and crazy. And that didn't go over well with the people who believed in the Ross Perot movement in this country. Tim Russert, you've been looking at what? The born-again Christians and their role in this campaign, and also veterans.
Tom, I got a call from some Bush people saying, you know, we spent all this time in the Houston Convention trying to relate to the born-again Christians, and they always had come through with us with about 80% of the vote. It looks like tonight about 20% less for George Bush. That Bill Clinton and Ross Perot made serious inroads with born-again Christians, which underscores again how hurtful that Republican convention is.
270 electoral votes. He wins the state of Wisconsin, which took a little longer than we anticipated tonight. It went Democratic in 76 and 88, so we cover Wisconsin red now. Solidly in the Midwest, he's just 5 electoral votes away from winning. Bill Clinton, the 2 Dakotas could do that, form a combination of Montana.
As we broke for commercial, we told you that a Democratic Senate incumbent, Terry Sanford, had
President, let's go back to NBC right now with the very latest. spent so much time there on his bus trips. With me is an early supporter, Governor David Walters of Oklahoma, the incoming head of the National Governors Association, and someone who, Governor, lined up the other Democratic governors for Bill Clinton back in August, more than a year ago. What do you think his first steps will be?
Well, obviously he has to assemble his cabinet and a great staff and begin the terrific work of taking on this incredible job. But immediately after that, then he has to attack health care and education and jobs. I think health care is going to be one of the biggest challenges early on. He made all of the other governors' hearts sore by saying he's going to pass something in 100 days. And so we hope to help him.
Now, do you think he's going to be calling upon other governors and former governors to fill his cabinet? Give me some names, some people you think he might tap.
Well, I think we will see some other governors. Dick Riley out of North Carolina, maybe Ray Mabus out of Mississippi, Bruce Babbitt out of Arizona. I think there are a lot of good former governors and maybe some current governors. Former senators recently announced retiring senators, Tim Wirth out of Colorado and others. Dave McCurdy in our own state and the United States Congress would I think, do well in defense. There's just a lot of good talent. It's kind of like not having harvested a crop for 12 years. There's a lot of great talent in the Democratic Party, and they're anxious and eager to go to work on these national problems.
One of the things that's so striking about this election is that you have two men of the South, a Southern ticket, capturing the North, recreating the coalition, the old coalition.
Well, it's because they used good Southern values to become the party of ideas. What's carried this party for the Democrats in this election is good, strong ideas. No longer can you tag us with tax and spend. We've got great ideas on education and health care.
Thanks very much, Governor David Walters, Oklahoma. Back to Tom.
Thank you, Andrew Mitchell. There's the ticket, the youngest president and vice president in American history, probably, 46 and 44 years of age. John Kennedy at 43 was the youngest president. He would be 75 years old now. One of the highlights of Bill Clinton's young life was when he met John Kennedy in the Rose Garden at Boys Nation. Some of the other names that have been cropping up, by the way, for a new Clinton cabinet: Marian Wright Edelman may go to Health and Human Services. Vernon Jordan would like to be the Attorney General, we're told. We'll also be hearing about Tom Kean, a Republican, for Education Secretary. Warren Christopher from California.
You know, Tom, Bill Clinton has not worked overly hard to correct the misimpression, if some had it, that he was trying to duplicate the aura that John F. Kennedy created in this country back in 1960. Certainly he has the groundwork for it. When you consider the turnout today and the number of young people getting involved in the process, the energy would seem to be on his side. And say what you will of Bill Clinton, you have to give him very high marks on two counts. Number one, for resiliency. You noted the problems that he had to overcome. And number two, for discipline, that in the face of whatever was hurled against him, he stood by his message of change, and he stayed with it, and it served him well.
A year ago at this time, John Chancellor, he said to me, you know, a lot of people forget that I've run in 19 different campaigns. That's going to serve me well in the course of the next year. But he's promised change. He's promised jobs. That's not going to be such an easy promise to deliver on.
No, but what I think we are going to get...
We'll rejoin NBC as the situation warrants, but again, Governor Bill Clinton has gone over the top with the number of electoral votes needed to become the next president of the United States, and yes, the state of Ohio did it. How fitting in the primary season when he won the Ohio primary. They gave him enough delegates to win the nomination. When they went to Madison Square Garden, it was the Ohio delegation that put him over the top, and all the balloons fell and the band sounded. And on this election night, November 3rd, the state of Ohio's 21 electoral votes give Bill Clinton the win. When we saw him in Toledo at his rally down by Bud and Luke, he said, Ohio, make me 3 for 3, pointing out the primary season, the Democratic convention. Ohio obviously responding tonight, 3 for 3. Ohio putting Bill Clinton over the top into the White House.
In electoral votes.
Yep.
And we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more after this. Stay with us.
Tonight.
Doing the same, right. Mark Beyer is out with, we're going out to Democratic headquarters with Jim Harpin, where the Democrats are gathered to celebrate with Mark Pietrokowski.
Well, yes, Diane, the name...
California sweeps in 2 women senators with him. More about that later. Washington State, 11 electoral votes, goes for Clinton. Perot, a factor here in a state that was strongly anti-Bush. Unemployment 6.9 in Washington. 11 electoral votes go to Bill Clinton. That's one of the reasons he now has at least 365 electoral votes, only 270 needed to win. Oregon, 7 electoral votes. Bill Clinton wins it. Is it enough to pull in a Democratic senator over an incumbent Republican with him? We'll see as time goes along. Out in Hawaii, 4 electoral votes. Traditional Democratic stronghold is this time. Bill Clinton gets it, wins in Ohio. Now, this is the way the electoral votes shape up at the moment. Bill Clinton, 362. No other word for it. It's an avalanche, landslide if you want to call it that, a political earthquake of sorts, with a one-term incumbent president going down to this kind of defeat. Clinton's total, we will know later whether it goes larger. It has the potential to go above 400. George Bush is assured of 64 electoral votes. Perot has none.
All over the world tonight.
Yeah, that's all they have to do. What are there, 50 pictures there?
Yeah, this broadcast
Something
is going to 15 countries, as we said at the beginning of this evening, including across most of Russia. And
she has inspired this entire nation, and I think the country will always be grateful. But tonight is really not a night for speeches, but I want to share a special message with the young people of America. I am absolutely... You see, I remain absolutely convinced that we are a rising nation. We have been in an extraordinarily difficult period, but do not be deterred, kept away from public service by the smoke and fire of a campaign year or the ugliness of politics. As for me, I plan to get, I'm going to serve and try to find ways to help people, but I plan to get very active in the grandchild business and in finding ways to help others. But I urge you, the young people of this country, to participate in the political process. It needs your idealism. It needs your drive. It needs your conviction. And again, my thanks, my congratulations to Governor Clinton, to his running mate, Senator Gore, and my special thanks to each and every one of you, many of you who have been my side in every single political battle. May God bless the United States of America. Thank you very, very much.
George Bush,
you so much.
68 years of age. George Bush conceding defeat, congratulating Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton, and rallying with supporters down there in Houston, Texas, and imploring young people to not be disillusioned, but to stay active in the system and bring their idealism to politics.
And we are also awaiting the speech we expect to hear.
Bush's little speech, I thought, was the perfectly polite speech.
Thank you. No, thank you.
there's no question that in this election campaign, he has been there every step of the way for the president. Campaigned ferociously for his re-election. I wonder if he's surprised.
I have just a few minutes ago, I spoke to Governor Clinton, and I congratulated him. No, tonight is Bill Clinton's night, and I congratulated Bill Clinton, and we must all pull together now. He is going to be the President of the United States for the next 4 years. He deserves our congratulations. He ran a good campaign. He ran a tough campaign. If he runs the country as well as he ran his campaign, we'll be all right. My friends, these last 4 years, I've had the privilege to serve with one of the most outstanding individuals I've ever met, George Bush. He is one of the most honest, decent, caring individuals that I have ever met. Marilyn and I count the President and Barbara Bush as special friends, and the two of them have done a lot for America. My friends, tonight we have everything to be proud of, even though it's not a victory, because history will...
Being spokesperson in this whole drive to sort of clean up popular culture. The crowd noise is picking up at Little Rock, and that's usually an indication that the candidate's on the way. Let's listen in for just a second.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join in the singing of our national anthem led by Carolyn Staley.
Mr. Gore and Mr.
But because a lot of Republicans simply decided he was not sincere in any of his protestations. And the country had decided that he didn't mean what he said, and that if he did mean what he said, he couldn't get it done anyway. That I think the convention was just one brick more over a load.
Well, George, I agree that the convention didn't make or break George Bush, but I think it was mean-spirited to the extent that it turned a lot of people off. George Bush, all year long, was so fixated on trying to secure his base, that is, the far right and even the moderate right, that he forgot that that's not enough to get elected president. You can't do it that way. You have to reach out and get people who are moderates. And when you have that fiery rhetoric, as Pat Buchanan did, as Marilyn Quayle did at the convention, as Pat Robertson did at the convention, you're going to turn people off that you need if you want to get elected. You can be a hero to the right wing, and you get defeated. But I agree with you, George, that... I'm sorry, Peter, go ahead.
No, you please finish.
Well, I just wanted to say the convention didn't matter, because this was not an election that was won on tactics. It was a structural election. I think if George Bush had been brilliant every step of the way, had done all the right things about going places, he would still have been defeated tonight because the economy would have done it.
Well, we've heard a lot of devastating observations about all the politicians this year. One, George, that sticks in my mind, tell me again if you think it holds water. Rush Limbaugh said of George Bush one evening, there he stands looking down at his notes trying to remember how he feels. Problem for George Bush or just funny?
It's funny because it's true. That is, again, the president seemed to be looking around for himself and having trouble finding it. But, Peter, let's not lose sight of the following. The Republicans have had the White House for 12 years. That's a very long time in American politics. Only 4 times in our long history has the White House been controlled by one party for more than 12 years. So this pendular movement in American politics is really quite natural.
Okay, let me stop you all for just a second. We do not want any of you to go away. But in about, 15? 30. In about 30 seconds from now, Governor Clinton is finally going to show up. Governor Clinton, like Ross Perot and like the White House, which has been so efficient all these years, have known what it means to talk to the whole nation or only talk to part of the nation, because part of the nation is doing local coverage. So in about 10 seconds from now, we're going to welcome all our local stations back around the country. So if you'll just bear with us for 1 minute and look at that giant crowd in Little Rock. Good evening, everybody. Once again, it's midnight in the east, 9 o'clock in the west, 11 o'clock in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm Peter Jennings with David Brinkley and the entire ABC News election team, here waiting for Governor Clinton to come and talk to an enormous crowd that has just seemed to swell gradually over the night, as Chris Bury and Ted Koppel, who were there, told us a little earlier on. It's comprised mainly of young people. There's been a local choir singing both patriotic and regional songs. The polls have closed in the last state, in Alaska, with 3 electoral votes. It's still too close to call, but it's leaning to Bush. Let's just have one projection from David, and then we'll listen to the choir until Governor Clinton comes in.
Well, my projection is from Alaska, and it is that Frank Murkowski, the incumbent Republican, has been re-elected. And you may recall it was he who sponsored a bill to require oil tankers to have double hulls so as to reduce the oil when they have a spill. Reduce the spill. Frank Murkowski.
Here's another one from Idaho, David.
Dirk Kempthorne, who's the mayor of Boise. Mayors of Boise have a hard time in Idaho. For some reason, they're not trusted around the state. But Kempthorne has been elected.
And we also now know pretty much, able to estimate, that the makeup of the new House of Representatives, plus or minus maybe a half dozen seats, is going to be Democrats 251, Republicans.
The next president of the United States of America, Governor Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Chelsea Clinton.
The winner.
Well, maybe this is what they were waiting for, David, for the Gore family to get up from Tennessee. Who knows? Who would have believed it 12 months ago?
Very few.
Hillary Clinton.
Her daughter, Chelsea.
Yeah. Hillary Clinton, the first lady with a postgraduate degree. She's a law degree.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. My fellow Americans, on this day, with high hopes and brave hearts, in massive numbers, the American people have voted to make a new beginning. This election is a clarion call for our country to face the challenges of the end of the Cold War and the beginning of the next century. To restore growth to our country and opportunity to our people. To empower our own people so that they can take more responsibility for their own lives. To face problems too long ignored, from AIDS to the environment to the conversion of our economy from a defense to a domestic economic giant. And perhaps most important of all, to bring our people together as never before so that our diversity can be a source of strength in a world that is ever smaller, where everyone counts and everyone is a part of America's family. I want to begin this night by thanking my family, my wife, without whom I would not be here tonight, and who I believe will be one of the greatest first ladies in the history of this republic. I also want to say a special word of thanks to our daughter for putting up with our absence, for supporting our effort, for being brave in the face of adversity, and for reminding us every day about what this election is really all about. I want to thank my mother, my brother, my stepfather, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, my brothers-in-law, and my sister-in-law who carried this campaign across this country and stuck up for me when others were trying to put it down. I love them and I thank them. I want to thank the people of this wonderful small state. Time after time, when this campaign was about to be counted out, the Arkansas travelers exploded out of this state around the country to tell people the truth about what we had done here together, how we had pulled together, what we believed in, and what we could do as a nation. I had the best staff and cabinet you can imagine. They kept this state together, and even when we weren't here, we continued to lead the country in job growth, in keeping taxes and spending down, and in pulling the people of Arkansas together to show what we could do if the nation pulled together and moved forward too. I want to thank the people who are in that infamous group, the FOBs, the Friends of Bill and the Friends of Hillary. No person who ever sought this office was more aided by the friends of a lifetime, and I will never forget you.
I want to thank the people in the new Democratic Party, headed by our chairman, Ron Brown, the new members of Congress, the new blood, the new direction that we are giving. And finally, I want to thank the members of my brilliant, aggressive, unconventional, but always winning campaign staff. They were unbelievable. And they have earned this. I want to say, if I might, a special word of thanks to two people who lost their lives in the course of this campaign, without whom we might not be here tonight. Our friends, Paul Tully and Vic Razor, our prayers are with them. They're looking down on us tonight, and they're awful happy. Not very long ago, I received a telephone call from President Bush. It was a generous and forthcoming telephone call of real congratulations and an offer to work with me in keeping our democracy running in an effective and important transition. I want all of you to join with me tonight in expressing our gratitude to President Bush for his lifetime of public service, for the effort he made from the time he was a young soldier in World War II to helping to bring about an end to the Cold War, to our victory in the Gulf War, to the grace with which he conceded the results of this election tonight in the finest American tradition. Let's give Mr. Bush and his family a hand. I heard tonight Mr. Perot's remarks and his offer to work with us. I say to you, of all the things that he said, I think perhaps the most important that we understand here in the heartland of Arkansas is the need to reform the political system, to reduce the influence of special interest and give more influence back to the kind of people that are in this crowd tonight, to the tens of thousands, and I will work with him to do that. And finally, let me say how profoundly indebted I am tonight, beyond the folks at home, beyond the wonderful people who worked in this administration, the Lieutenant Governor and others to keep our government going, beyond all the others, I have to say a special word of thanks to my magnificent running mate, Senator Al Gore, and his family. I want to tell you that Al and Tipper, Hillary and I have become friends. I admire them for what they stand for. They're enjoyable to be with. They believe in our country. Al Gore is a man of almost unparalleled combination of intelligence, commitment, compassion, and concern to the people of this country, to our obligation to preserve our environment, to our duty to promote freedom and peace in the world, and together we're going to do our best to give you a new partnership for a new America. I want to thank Al's children, his brother-in-law, and his wonderful parents. They made about as many votes in some states as we did. I think we carried every state that Senator and Mrs. Gore campaigned in. Their percentage was the best of all. I want to say that we have established a partnership in this campaign that we will continue into this new administration. For if we have learned anything in the world today, it is that we can accomplish more by teamwork, by working together, by bringing out the best in all the people that we seek. And we will seek the best and most able and most committed people throughout this country to be a part of our team. We will ask the Democrats who believe in our cause to come forward, but we will look too among the ranks of independents and Republicans who are willing to roll up their sleeves, be a part of a new partnership, and get on with the business of dealing with this nation's problems. I remind you again tonight, my fellow Americans, that this victory was more than a victory of party. It was a victory for the people who work hard and play by the rules. A victory for the people who feel left out and left behind, but want to do better. A victory for the people who are ready to compete and win in the global economy, but who need a government that offers a hand up, not a handout. That is what we offer, and that is what tomorrow we will begin to work to provide to all of you. Today, the steel worker and the stenographer, the teacher and the nurse had as much power in the mystery of our democracy as the president, the billionaire, and the governor. You all spoke with equal voices for change, and tomorrow we will try to give you that. You can trust us to wake up every day remembering the people we saw in the bus trips, the people we saw in the town meetings, the people we touched at the rallies, the people who had never voted before, the people who hadn't voted in 20 years, the people who'd never voted for a Democrat, the people who had given up hope. All of them together are saying, we want our future back, and I intend to help give it to you. I say to all of those who voted for us, this was a remarkable coalition for change. Many of you had to put aside this or that personal ambition to be a part of a broad, deep commitment to change this country. I ask you to keep that commitment as we move from election to governing. We need more than ever, for those of you who said, let's put the public interest over personal interest, to keep it right there for 4 years so we can turn this country around. I say to all those who voted for Mr. Bush or Mr. Perot, those who voted for the president, those who voted for Ross Perot, I know you love your country too. I ask you to listen to the voice of your leaders. I ask you to join with us in creating a reunited states, a united country with a new sense of patriotism to face the challenges of this new time. We need your help too, and we will do our best to deserve it. When we seek to offer young people the opportunity to borrow the money they need to go to college and the challenge to pay it back through national service, when we challenge the insurance companies, the drug companies, the providers and the consumers, the government to give us a new health care system, when we offer those on welfare new opportunity and the challenge to move to work, when we ask companies to take the incentives we offer to put American people to work and export American products, not American jobs, all of this is a part of a new patriotism to lift our people up and enable all of us to live up to the fullest of our potential. I accept tonight the responsibility that you have given me to be the leader of this, the greatest country in human history. I accept it with a full heart and a joyous spirit. But I ask you to be Americans again, too. To be interested not just in getting, but in giving. Not just in placing blame, but now in assuming responsibility. Not just in looking out for yourselves, but in looking out for others, too. In this very place, 1 year and 1 month ago today, I said, we need more than new laws, new promises, or new programs. We need a new spirit of community, a sense that we're all in this together. If we have no sense of community, the American dream will continue to wither. Our destiny is bound up with the destiny of every American. We're all in this together, and we will rise or fall together. That has been my message to the American people for the past 13 months, and it will be my message for the next 4 years. Together, we can do it. Together, we can make the country that we love everything it was meant to be. I still believe in a place called hope. God bless America. Thank you all. would like to ask Senator Gore to come up here and say a few words as we begin our new partnership for a new country. Please welcome him to the platform.
Do or don't.
Thank you, President-elect Bill Clinton. For Tipper and me and our 4 children, this has been an extraordinary journey. I want to, first of all, thank Bill and Hillary and Chelsea, knowing of all the sacrifices they have made and the hardships they have endured. And I would like to thank the person who is most important in my life, Tipper Gore. To our four children, Corinna, Kristen, Sarah, and Albert, to my parents, Albert and Pauline Gore, and to my brother-in-law, Frank Hunger, I can never express the thanks that I feel in my heart. This has been a time of discovery, a time of restored dreams and renewed hope, a time when the strength and promise of America has revealed itself, poised to meet the challenges of a new day. None of this could have been possible for me without the people of the state of Tennessee, and I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. I also want to thank the wonderful men and women on the staff who have helped us secure this victory, and I want to say to all of you who have helped us reach this moment that I look forward to the high challenges of national office, and I consider it a matter of tremendous honor and pride to work in behalf of Bill Clinton to be successful in leading this nation toward a new and brighter future. Bill Clinton spoke sensibly and honestly to the American people. As the attacks against him became more and more desperate, he remained calm. He believed in the American people and kept faith that hope would indeed triumph over fear. Bill Clinton won because he was willing to lose. He refused to mislead voters. He stuck to his beliefs. He asked for your vote by challenging you to make America better. Where I come from, we have a name for that. It's called character. Bill Clinton will govern this nation in the same way. He truly is a new generation of Democrat. He believes in the rights of people, but he believes in the responsibilities of citizens as well. Our government's policies must be changed. The promise of America depends upon a commitment that under freedom we will enable the strong to prosper, but we will not abandon those in need of help. While we give supreme value to the rights of the individual, we expect that freedom to be exercised with respect toward others and with decent restraint. We respect the values of community, and among them is our obligation to protect the environment in which we live. We feel good tonight having won an election, but think of how we're going to feel when we change a country. There is a sense of excitement and possibility this evening. We have won, and many of you will be able to tell your children about it one day. But if we change this country, if we restore it to greatness, then we will have given them something much greater than the memory of this evening. We will have restored the basic thread in the American dream, the responsibility of one generation to the next. We will have given them back their future. This election is not simply a change of leaders. It is a change of generations. For the first time, the executive office will be occupied by leaders born after World War II. I don't want to overstate the dimensions of this difference. After all, neither Bill Clinton nor myself are as young as Teddy Roosevelt or John Kennedy when they took office, nor does that change of generations represent a difference of belief. We share, as did our predecessors, an unyielding commitment to the principles on which this country was established over 2 centuries ago. But we will bring a different perspective and a renewal of energy. We are the children of modern America, close to its desires and to its difficulties, charged with the exuberant optimism which so often characterizes a younger generation of leaders. And only the optimist, only those who believe that constructive change is within our powers can hope to achieve it, and we intend to accomplish that achievement. Although this is not the first time we have witnessed the elevation of a new generation of leaders, it is the first time that both candidates have come from the South. It is symbolically an expression of the reality that sectional wounds of the past are finally and irrevocably healed. We are one country now, and merit, not geography, will from this time forward be the only test for the highest offices our nation has. And we pledge to you to work toward the day when gender and race will also be totally irrelevant to the selection of our leaders. The deeper meaning of this election is our commitment to end the divisions in our nation. Those who helped us to win this victory represented an astonishing diversity of interests and opinions. They were willing to put aside those differences in pursuit of a common cause. Let us now bring the same spirit of accommodation which won this election to the far harder task of governing this nation. We all have a common stake in national growth, in justice, and in the strengthening of freedom. Surely, if we could bridge our differences for the sake of an election, we can put them aside on behalf of a far greater cause, the future of the American nation. The election is a mandate for change. It is good to remember that this election also affirms certain fundamental things about our lives together as Americans. We are still participants in a great experiment: the sovereignty of the people to rule themselves, the power to create and to destroy governments of persons elected from among them, and the idea that governments exist in order that citizens may exercise their inherent rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are still the most radical political ideas ever expressed in the history of nations. And this year, it was, after all, the American people who forced the debate to stay on the issues when others would wander. This year, it was you, the people, who disciplined our politics, our politicians, and everyone else to focus on the things that matter to you. And you have given us a great opportunity to help America move forward, to end the distress of the present, and to renew this nation's voyage toward ever-enlarging opportunity for all our people. And that's the journey we will attempt. Not just Governor Clinton and I, but all of those who supported us, and those multitudes who may have voted for our opponents, but who share our belief in America's great possibilities. And so to all of you I say, welcome aboard the great ship USA. We're about to embark on a new journey together, and it's time for us to go.
who thinks this is the Jefferson airplane, though they're mine. Fleetwood Mac again. And so concludes this evening in Little Rock with two men who seem almost compelled, David, to go on campaigning.
I felt like saying to them, you have won. You don't have to make another long speech. You have won. It's over. You won.
On the other hand, they've won, and so we'll listen, too.
No, we did listen.
You're looking at the man who'll be the 42nd president of the United States. As we said a little while ago, the first lady who'll have a postgraduate degree. Just before midnight in Little Rock, Arkansas, if ever a man and a team should feel humble, this was it. When we come back, we're going to ask our far-flung or reasonably far-flung staff of correspondents and commentators to give you one more sense of how this evening has looked overall. I hope you'll stay with us. We'll tell you where the governor's races have ended up, the Senate, what is still too close to call, and what you can expect in the hours ahead on ABC's World News Now. So stay with us for just a moment.
ABC News coverage of the 92 vote. Brought to you by Chrysler Plymouth. From our Election Night Command Center in New York, ABC News coverage of the 92 vote will continue in a moment.
Well,
this is CNN Headline News.
Tallied. For complete election updates, stay with CNN Headline News.
A clarion call, a new beginning. President-elect Bill Clinton is claiming his victory and vowing to create a reunited states. CNN Headline News. I'm David Goodenow. Come January, there will be a new family moving into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the Clintons. After 12 years, the United States of America has elected a Democratic president and perhaps just as importantly, a Democratic House and Senate, too. Chuck Roberts is standing by at our update desk with all the details. Chuck.
Dave, thanks. Since a meeting with former President John F. Kennedy as a teenager, Bill Clinton dreamed of becoming president of the United States. And tonight, that dream came true. Some of the states in the Clinton win column included delegate-rich California, New York, and the hard-pressed industrial state of Michigan. President and Vice President-elect Al Gore just joined the celebration in Little Rock about a half hour ago. Clinton keeping his promise, making his acceptance speech well after the California polls closed. Thousands of Clinton-Gore supporters cheerfully waited for several hours to hear the next president speak outside the Arkansas State House, and he told the crowd his victory is a mandate for change.
My fellow Americans, on this day, with high hopes and brave hearts, in massive numbers, the American people have voted to make a new beginning.
Following the Persian Gulf War, many wondered if anybody could beat George Herbert Walker Bush, but a declining economy proved to be his biggest opponent. And Tuesday, he conceded defeat in his adopted home state of Texas, saying, "The people have spoken." We should point out Bush carried Texas. Hundreds of supporters with tear-stained eyes chanted, "Thank you, George." And he urged them and all Americans to work with, not against, Bill Clinton.
And now I ask that we stand behind our new president, and regardless of our differences, all Americans share the same purpose, to make this, the world's greatest nation, more safe and more secure, and to guarantee every American a shot at the American dream.
Independent candidate Ross Perot ended his race for the White House with his usual unconventional style. After congratulating Bill Clinton and vowing to stay active, Perot danced with his wife and one of his daughters to the tune Crazy. In his concession speech, Perot told disappointed supporters to stick together so they can influence future political races. He said his group, United We Stand, made the candidates get back to the root of democracy.
Starting last February, you did something that everybody said couldn't be done. Millions of you came together to take your country back. You gave Washington a laser-like message to listen to the people.
Bill Clinton's victory tonight will likely help boost the Democratic majority in Congress, and the number of women will certainly increase substantially. Carol Moseley-Braun's become the first black woman ever elected to the U.S. Senate. She said she decided to run for the Senate after watching the treatment Anita Hill received during last fall's confirmation hearing for then Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas. She'll be joined in the Senate by two women from California. Representative Barbara Boxer had a tough fight with Republican Bruce Hershenson, but managed to hang on for a win. And former San Francisco Mayor Dianne Feinstein scored solid numbers against Republican incumbent John Seymour, who was appointed by Pete Wilson. Ironically, Seymour had been appointed by Wilson, who defeated Feinstein for the State House last year. The Republicans will likely suffer another loss in Oregon. Democratic Representative Les Aucoin aims to oust the long-tenured Bob Packwood, the pro-choice Republican. Packwood's in front right now with a third of the vote counted. The Democrats are losing one of their seats in North Carolina. Terry Sanford, the former Duke president, the former governor, he'd been plagued about questions about his health and had heart surgery only 3 weeks ago, has lost to Republican Lac Faircloth. One of the closest races of the evening, though, is in New York. Exit polls showed Republican incumbent Al D'Amato in a dead heat with State Attorney General Robert Abrams, though the early raw vote total gave D'Amato a substantial edge. It's now 2 points and closing. Things also tight in Pennsylvania. Democratic challenger Lynn Yackel lost a close one tonight to multi-termer Arlen Specter. Ohio, another close one, although Democrat John Glenn managed to fight off ethics questions stemming from the Keating 5 scandal. He has narrowly defeated the lieutenant governor, Mike DeWine. That's a done deal in Ohio. The race for the Senate seats has a distinctive Democratic flavor so far. 18 Democrats have been elected compared to 9 Republicans. If we look at the list right now, here's the incumbent list. 26 were running tonight. It's also been an election of note for women senatorial candidates. You see 21 of the 26 incumbents were elected.
Of government in the same party. And again, I look forward to seeing the government work for a change.
I'm struck by how many people we've listened to tonight from so many different places. We've heard them from the middle of the country. We heard from Pierre Salinger overseas talking about the challenges that face the new president over there. We had a little piece of video on World News Tonight earlier this evening about the Bosnia-Herzegovina, that challenge, changes not going as people would have liked in South Africa, the challenge of China, the competition from Asia, all the domestic economy. It's a whole new world for for all of us in some respects.
The next president must be more involved in foreign affairs than Mr. Bush was toward the end, because there are all kinds of things happening in Russia, for example. And most of them bad news. Most of them will need some attention from us. And the president is going to have to deal with it, like it or not.
This is a humiliating defeat for George Bush. You know him. How do you think he'll take it?
Well, I think he'll be humiliated. And but he's a grown man. He's civilized. He's intelligent. He will take it, and he may not like it, but he'll take it. And again, he will have time to do a lot of things he has not been able to do before. Play with his boat. He will probably build something to live in Houston.
He'll have to.
Because he doesn't have anything there but a hotel room. And so he'll have a lot to keep him busy.
Well, thank you as always.
Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
There are an awful lot of people to thank. Sometimes it's traditional at the end of these broadcasts to run endless more crawls thanking all the people. I'm particularly grateful to all the people in the studio cameraman, including him, wherever he is, Ernie up there, who followed us around this evening, all the people around our computer printouts and who gave us all the public information service. I'm particularly grateful to our political director, Hal Bruno, our brainy political researcher, my producer, Nancy Gabriner, Bob Roy, and to our director, Roger Goodman, and to our producer, Jeff Gralnick. Thank you all very much for helping David and me get through it. To all of you who have stayed with us, lo these many hours, we're grateful for that too. I'm Peter Jennings at Election Headquarters in New York. We'll see you tomorrow.
From ABC News Election Command Center in New York, this has been the 92 Vote.